Richard Harper Sr. was a man of imposing presence, his sharp eyes missing nothing that happened under the Harper estate's roof. With decades of influence in Willow Creek, he commanded respect, not just from his family, but from the entire town. He was a man who believed in legacy, in shaping the next generation to carry the Harper name with pride and distinction. Yet, despite the rigid standards he upheld, there was something in Logan Hayes that caught his attention. Logan had been invited to the mansion under the pretense of helping Maddie with her studies. But Richard Harper Sr., ever perceptive, had watched the boy quietly over the years. He had seen the intelligence behind Logan's thoughtful gaze, the determination in the way he carried himself, even amid poverty and loss. Logan's potential was undeniable. Unlike the Harper children who were coddled by wealth and influence, Logan had been forged in hardship, and the patriarch knew that kind of resilience was rare. One afternoon, as Logan helped Maddie with her algebra homework in the Grand Library, Richard Harper Sr. approached. His presence was commanding, yet there was a warmth in his eyes that made Logan stand a little taller. "Logan," he said, his voice steady but kind, "I've been watching you. You have a mind that shouldn't be confined to Willow Creek. There's more waiting for you than this small town can offer." Logan blinked, unsure whether he was hearing correctly. "Sir?" "I mean it," Richard Harper Sr. continued. "I can arrange for you to leave for Austin, pursue an education, build a future you've only dreamed of. You have the spark, Logan. Don't let this town define your limits." Logan's chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to him with such faith before. He wanted to speak, to thank the man, to promise that he would make the most of this opportunity, but words faltered. Maddie's eyes were wide, a mixture of pride and sadness. She knew that if Logan accepted, their everyday lives, the lazy afternoons, the creekside adventures, the whispered secrets, would change forever. Richard Harper Sr. placed a firm hand on Logan's shoulder. "Think carefully, but know this: you have my support, and I will ensure you have the means to succeed. You owe it to yourself to see how far you can go." As the patriarch walked away, Logan felt a mixture of exhilaration and fear. This was his chance to step into a world he had never dared to imagine. But it also meant leaving the one person who had made Willow Creek feel like home. The morning Logan was set to leave for Austin dawned with a heavy, golden light. Willow Creek seemed to know it was saying goodbye to one of its own. Birds sang a little more quietly, the wind moved slower through the fields, and the dirt road leading out of town seemed endless. Logan's small suitcase, packed with the few belongings he could call his own, sat by the door, a silent reminder of the life he was leaving behind. Maddie Harper was waiting for him near the creek, their favorite meeting spot. She had insisted on walking him to the edge of town, even though the Harper family staff had tried to convince her otherwise. Logan felt the weight of unspoken words between them, the sadness of imminent separation pressing down on his shoulders. "I can't believe you're really leaving," Maddie said softly. "I have to," Logan replied, swallowing the lump in his throat. This is my chance, Maddie. I can't waste it." She nodded, biting her lip to keep her emotions in check. "I know. I just wish things were different. I wish you didn't have to leave." Richard Harper Sr. placed a firm hand on Logan's shoulder. "Think carefully, but know this: you have my support, and I will ensure you have the means to succeed. You owe it to yourself to see how far you can go." As the patriarch walked away, Logan felt a mixture of exhilaration and fear. This was his chance to step into a world he had never dared to imagine. But it also meant leaving the one person who had made Willow Creek feel like home. The morning Logan was set to leave for Austin dawned with a heavy, golden light. Willow Creek seemed to know it was saying goodbye to one of its own. Birds sang a little more quietly, the wind moved slower through the fields, and the dirt road leading out of town seemed endless. Logan's small suitcase, packed with the few belongings he could call his own, sat by the door, a silent reminder of the life he was leaving behind. Maddie Harper was waiting for him near the creek, their favorite meeting spot. She had insisted on walking him to the edge of town, even though the Harper family staff had tried to convince her otherwise. Logan felt the weight of unspoken words between them, the sadness of imminent separation pressing down on his shoulders. "I can't believe you're really leaving," Maddie said softly, her fingers brushing against his arm. "I have to," Logan replied, swallowing the lump in his throat. This is my chance, Maddie. I can't waste it." She nodded, biting her lip to keep her emotions in check. "I know. I just wish things were different. I wish you didn't have to leave." The two of them sat in silence for a moment, listening to the gentle babble of the creek, the way the water twisted around rocks like the twisting thoughts in Logan's mind. He wanted to promise her he would come back, that nothing would change between them. But he also knew that life in Austin would transform him in ways Willow Creek never could. Finally, he stood, extending his hand to her. "All right," he said, though even he wasn't sure how often he could. "And when I come back, everything will be different. I'll be different." Maddie's eyes glistened with tears. She reached out, hugging him tightly, feeling the strength of the boy she had grown up with and the man he was about to become. "Just don't forget me," she whispered. "I could never forget you," Logan promised, holding her for a final moment before letting go. As Logan walked down the dirt road leading out of Willow Creek, the town stretched out behind him, golden and familiar, and yet a world of possibilities lay ahead. He didn't know what awaited him in Austin, but one thing was certain. No matter how far he went, Maddie Harper's presence would linger in his heart, guiding him forward. The bustling streets of Austin were a world apart from the quiet, sun-baked fields of Willow Creek. Logan Hayes, once an orphan navigating the dusty roads of his hometown, now found himself surrounded by the hum of a city alive with ambition. The university campus was vast, with towering lecture halls, sprawling libraries, and students who seemed to glide through life with privilege that Logan had never known. At first, Logan struggled to find his footing. His clothes were hand-me-downs, his meals often budgeted down to the last dollar, and he felt the sting of being different among peers whose families could effortlessly afford tuition, apartments, and luxuries he had never dreamed of. Yet, beneath the discomfort, Logan's determination burned. He reminded himself constantly of the opportunity he had been given, of the faith Richard Harper Sr. had placed in him. Failure was not an option. He spent long nights in the library, poring over textbooks, scribbling notes, and researching topics far beyond his high school experience. Logan's professors quickly noticed his intellect and tenacity, and he earned their respect, not through wealth or connections, but through sheer effort and brilliance. He tutored fellow students, participated in debates, and gradually carved out a name for himself, one that didn't rely on the Harper name, but on his own merit. Yet, the road was not without obstacles. Logan faced subtle snubs and quiet ridicule from those who saw him as an outsider. He sometimes doubted himself, wondering if the gap between his humble beginnings and the polished world of Austin would ever truly close. But every setback became fuel for his ambition, every challenge a reminder that he was meant for something greater. By the end of his first year, Logan had not only adjusted, he was thriving. The boy who had once wandered the fields of Willow Creek was now a young man capable of standing tall in any room, a mind sharpened by opportunity, discipline, and a burning desire to make his mark. Yet, no matter how high he climbed, the memories of home and one particular girl lingered, pulling at the edges of his focus. Even amidst the achievements and accolades of university life, Logan's thoughts often drifted back to Maddie Harper. Her laughter, the way sunlight danced in her hair by the creek, the quiet understanding she always offered him. These memories were vivid, almost tangible, as if she were a presence lingering in the corners of his new world.
Late nights in his small apartment, Logan would find himself staring at a worn photograph of Willow Creek, Maddie's smiling face frozen in time. He would close his eyes and imagine her there, sitting beside him, asking questions about calculus or sharing a story about the Harper estate. It was these imaginings that drove him harder, pushed him to excel, and reminded him that he was striving not only for himself, but for the chance to one day return and see her again.
Maddie was more than a memory. She was a compass. Logan knew that success without her presence would feel hollow. He threw himself into his studies, into every challenge, not merely to escape poverty, but to prepare himself to stand beside her, to be someone worthy of her trust and admiration. The city around him was loud and bright, yet Maddie's face provided a quiet anchor, a reminder of home, innocence, and the heart he had never lost. At times, loneliness gnawed at him. Logan longed for someone who understood him as Maddie did, someone who saw beyond the circumstances of his birth. But those feelings, painful as they were, only strengthened his resolve. Maddie's memory became a motivation, a silent promise whispered to himself. He would return, and when he did, he would be the man capable of facing whatever challenges life threw at them both. The day of graduation arrived with a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. Logan walked across the stage, cap and gown swaying with the rhythm of applause, shaking hands with professors who had once doubted his place among them. His achievements were hard-earned, a testament to years of struggle, determination, and relentless ambition. Yet, as the ceremony ended and his peers celebrated, Logan's thoughts were not on the accolades, but on Willow Creek and the girl who had always been his anchor. He packed his belongings into a modest suitcase, double-checking each item as if ensuring nothing of his past was left behind. But some things he knew would always remain. The dusty roads, the fields where he and Maddie had played, and the whispered laughter they had shared were imprinted on his heart. Before leaving Austin, Logan took one final walk through the city streets. The skyline glinted in the late afternoon sun, a symbol of all he had accomplished. Yet it could not replace the quiet, familiar landscapes of home. He boarded the bus, suitcase in hand, anticipation and nervousness mingling in his chest. In 8 years, so much had changed, and yet some feelings he hoped remained eternal. When the bus finally rolled into Willow Creek, Logan's heart raced. He scanned the streets, searching for the familiar gate of the Harper estate, the fields by the creek, the girl who had unknowingly fueled his ambitions. Time had passed, but he could still feel Maddie's presence in every corner of the town. As he stepped down onto the dusty road, he whispered a silent promise to himself. He would see her again, and this time he would not let anything stand in his way. Logan's heart raced as he stepped onto the familiar path leading toward the Harper estate. The years in Austin had changed him. He was taller, more confident, and the faint shadow of his orphaned past seemed a little lighter. But nothing could prepare him for the sight of Maddie. She was standing by the garden fountain, sunlight dancing through her hair, the same mischievous smile lighting up her face that he remembered from their childhood. Her eyes, vivid, sparkling, and full of warmth, locked onto him for just a moment, and Logan felt a jolt that made the world around him blur. She looked radiant, every bit the young woman he had imagined in his dreams during countless nights in Austin. Yet somehow she still belonged to the quiet fields and secret hideouts of Willow Creek. "Logan," Maddie called, her voice carrying across the garden like a familiar melody. She ran toward him, arms open, laughter bubbling like it had years ago. Logan's chest tightened. He wanted to tell her everything he had felt over the years, to confess the nights he had spent imagining this reunion. But the words caught in his throat.
"Hey, Maddie," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. He swallowed, trying to maintain the composure he had built over 8 years of ambition and hardship. For the next hour, they wandered the gardens, talking about mundane things at first, her travels, his studies, the small changes in Willow Creek. But Logan hung on every word, every glance, every flicker of expression. In his mind, every smile and laugh was confirmation that Maddie had never stopped caring for him, that the bond they shared as children still pulsed between them. He allowed himself the dangerous thought that maybe she felt the same way he did, that the universe had saved this reunion just for them. Yet, even as he basked in the warmth of her presence, Logan couldn't ignore the subtle reminders that the world had changed. Maddie had grown into a woman of grace and sophistication, and Logan felt a surge of fear that his own love, however deep, might not be enough to claim a place in her life. But for now, he silenced his doubts, allowing himself to savor the long-awaited moment. The next afternoon, Logan was invited into the Harper drawing room, ostensibly to discuss business matters with Richard Harper Sr. As he stepped through the polished doors, he was greeted not only by the patriarch, but by an unfamiliar man, tall, impeccably dressed, and exuding the effortless charm of wealth. "Maddie's fiancé," whispered Rachel, Logan's cousin, who had followed him in. Logan barely caught her words before Brandon Lawson extended a firm handshake and a dazzling smile.
Logan froze, the world narrowing to a single sharp point of pain. Maddie, engaged? To another man? He watched as she laughed easily at Brandon's jokes, her hand brushing his arm in casual intimacy. The sight sent a cold ache through Logan's chest, and for the first time, the years of preparation, the sacrifices, the sleepless nights in Austin seemed painfully insufficient. Brandon spoke about his plans for the couple, Dallas, business ventures, even a home they had purchased together. Maddie's eyes shone with excitement as she described the future they were about to share, and Logan realized, with a devastating clarity, that the woman he had dreamed of loving for so long had already chosen someone else. His voice felt heavy in his throat, unworthy of even a casual greeting. Logan smiled politely, nodding along, but inside, he was crumbling. Every fiber of him wanted to run, to hide from the scene, to deny the truth. But he stayed, determined to witness her happiness, even if it was not meant for him. The days that followed were torturous for Logan. Every encounter with Maddie felt like walking a tightrope between devotion and despair. He watched her interactions with Brandon, laughed at her jokes, celebrated her achievements, all while keeping his true feelings buried deep inside. Only Rachel, his cousin, and Maddie's mother, Leela, understood the depth of his suffering. Rachel's sympathy was quiet but unwavering. She offered him advice on navigating his heart without overstepping boundaries. Leela, sensing the quiet pain in Logan's eyes, occasionally offered words of comfort, reminding him that love was patient and sometimes cruel, but never meaningless. Logan threw himself into helping the Harper family with small tasks, volunteering in town events, anything to stay close to Maddie while keeping his feelings secret. Every smile she offered, every playful touch, felt like both a gift and a knife to his heart. Yet he endured, convincing himself that his love, though unspoken, mattered in its own quiet way. Late at night, Logan would lie awake in the guest room of the Harper estate, staring at the ceiling and replaying every interaction, analyzing every laugh, every glance. He questioned whether he should confess, whether he could bear to lose her entirely if she rejected him. But he knew one thing for certain: Logan Hayes would never stop caring for Maddie Harper, even if it meant suffering in silence, even if it meant watching her happiness with another man from the sidelines. The silent suffering became his companion, a shadow of longing that followed him everywhere. And yet, beneath the pain, a quiet flame of hope remained, fragile but persistent, promising that perhaps, in time, destiny might offer him a second chance.
Logan had always known the Harper family carried a certain weight in Willow Creek, but observing them as an adult, he began to understand the depth of their influence and the unyielding force of their expectations. The Harper estate was a world governed by tradition, where appearances mattered more than personal happiness, and where each member's choices were weighed against generations of family pride. He watched Maddie navigate this world with a careful balance of grace and compliance. Her every word, every movement seemed scrutinized under the invisible eyes of her grandfather, Richard Harper Sr., and her father, Little Harper. Logan noticed how Maddie's laughter, though genuine, sometimes faltered in the presence of her elders, as if she were constantly measuring the acceptability of her own emotions. During dinner one evening, Logan observed Little Harper's subtle but firm insistence on Maddie's engagement to Brandon Lawson. The conversation revolved around wealth, alliances, and the continuation of the Harper legacy, rather than Maddie's feelings. Logan's heart ached as he listened, recognizing the heavy burden placed upon her, and the silent compromise Maddie had already made for the sake of family expectations. Richard Harper Sr., with his commanding presence, rarely spoke out of turn, yet when he did, his words carried the weight of decades of authority. Logan noticed the deference shown by everyone around him, even Maddie, who otherwise seemed vibrant and independent. It was a delicate dance, one that required Maddie to suppress the desires of her own heart in favor of the family's vision. Logan, standing quietly in the background, felt the sharp divide between the world he had grown into in Austin and the old, rigid traditions that still controlled Willow Creek. The gap between Maddie's duties and her happiness was painfully visible, and he realized that love alone might not be enough to protect her from the pressures of her family. Still, Logan vowed silently that he would remain by her side, ready to offer support in whatever way he could, even if it meant being a silent witness to her obligations. As the evening wore on, Logan's resolve hardened. He could not change the past, nor could he immediately reshape the Harper family's worldview, but he could be there for Maddie, a steady presence amid the unrelenting expectations. And perhaps, one day, he could show her that love did not have to exist in quiet corners. It could be bold, it could be real, and it could endure beyond tradition. Brandon Lawson was everything Logan was not: wealthy, confident, and effortlessly charismatic. From the moment he entered Maddie's life, it was clear that he intended to give her the world, and she seemed equally drawn to him. Observing their interactions, Logan felt a mixture of admiration and despair. Brandon's love for Maddie was genuine, unpretentious, and selfless in ways Logan could respect, even as it deepened the ache in his own heart.
Brandon had a way of noticing the smallest things: her favorite flowers, the way she liked her tea, the way she furrowed her brow when thinking. He anticipated her needs without waiting to be asked, and celebrated her triumphs as if they were his own. Watching him speak to her, laugh with her, and gently correct her in moments of doubt, Logan felt the sting of inadequacy. No amount of ambition or intellect could compete with the effortless devotion Brandon offered. Maddie responded to him in kind, her smiles softer, her laughter more luminous. Logan noticed how her shoulders relaxed in Brandon's presence, how she leaned into his support, and how her eyes sparkled when he complimented her, not just for beauty, but for her mind and spirit. Brandon's love was the kind that demanded nothing but gave everything, and it was a force Logan could neither rival nor resist respecting. Every gesture, every kind word, every protective instinct Brandon displayed was a reminder to Logan of the distance that had grown between Maddie and himself, not just physically, but emotionally. Logan's heart ached in silence, but he never faltered in his respect for Brandon's intentions. He understood that Maddie's happiness was paramount, even if it meant enduring his own heartbreak. Yet, amidst the pain, Logan's resolve only strengthened. He realized that love was not merely possession, it was devotion, patience, and sacrifice. And though Brandon's love for Maddie shone brightly, Logan knew that circumstances were fragile, that fate had a way of testing hearts, and that the story was far from over. He would endure, he would wait, and he would be ready for the moment when he could finally show Maddie the depth of his own love.
The morning sun cast a golden glow over Willow Creek, illuminating the Harper estate as it prepared for the celebration of the year, Maddie Harper's wedding. Flowers adorned the entrance, the scent of roses mingling with the faint smell of freshly cut grass. The town had gathered, the entire community buzzing with excitement. But for Logan Hayes, the day was a complex tangle of emotions. He had been invited by Richard Harper Sr., a gesture that both acknowledged his place in Maddie's life and reminded him of the distance that now lay between them. Logan dressed carefully, though his clothes were modest compared to the tailored suits of Brandon Lawson and the Harper men. As he stepped into the grand hall, he caught sight of Maddie, radiant in her ivory gown, her hair perfectly styled, a smile on her face that shone brighter than the crystal chandeliers overhead. Logan's chest tightened as he watched her walk down the aisle, her eyes briefly meeting his. For a fleeting second, he thought he saw a spark of recognition, perhaps even a glimmer of shared affection, but it was gone in the blink of an eye, replaced by the practiced composure she wore for Brandon, her family, and the town. Logan clenched his fists, forcing himself to smile politely, all the while feeling the ache in his chest deepen. As the ceremony progressed, Logan observed the subtle dynamics of the Harper family, the pride, the tradition, and the expectation that Maddie's happiness was secondary to the family's reputation. Brandon stood tall beside her, whispering encouragements and tender words that made Logan's heart break in quiet anguish. Each vow they exchanged, each smile they shared, was a reminder that the woman Logan had loved for years had chosen another path, a path he could neither contest nor alter. Logan remained a silent witness, his emotions warring within him. Duty to his own conscience told him to be happy for Maddie, to support her as a friend, but his heart longed to reach out, to claim what had been his in childhood dreams and adult devotion. Yet he knew his place. He stayed in the shadows, watching, loving silently, and vowing that one day fate might allow a different outcome. 3 days after the wedding, the world that Maddie had carefully constructed collapsed in an instant. Brandon Lawson, the man who had promised her a lifetime of love, never returned from a business trip to Dallas. News came in the form of whispers, then urgent knocks, then the final, irrevocable words. A car accident, sudden and merciless, leaving no chance for survival. Maddie's life unraveled with shocking speed. The elegant halls of the Harper mansion seemed empty, hollow echoes of joy replaced by grief and disbelief. Her laughter was gone, replaced by stifled sobs that shook her frame. Logan, upon hearing the news, rushed to her side, though even his presence could not fill the void left by Brandon's absence. The town of Willow Creek was sympathetic, yet their sympathy was tinged with the rigid expectations of tradition. Some whispered that Maddie should pull herself together, that a widow's sorrow had limits, and that the Harper name must not suffer scandal. Logan could see the cruel pressure settling on her, the way her posture sagged under the weight of grief, and he felt a helpless rage bubble within him. Maddie, meanwhile, wandered through the mansion like a ghost, her hands clutching memories of Brandon's love, the way he had held her hand, the words he had whispered, the promises now shattered. She was caught in a liminal space between love and loss, unable to reconcile the suddenness of death with the dreams they had shared. Logan watched, heartbroken, knowing that no words, no gestures could undo the devastation. Even in the midst of mourning, the Harper family's influence was relentless. Richard Harper Sr., his voice steady but firm, reminded Maddie of the traditions that bound her. A widow must observe her place, he declared, or risk ostracism. The family name cannot tolerate impropriety. Little Harper and other relatives echoed his sentiments, their eyes cold and unyielding. Maddie's grief collided with expectation. Lila, her mother, protested quietly but firmly, pleading for compassion and understanding. She argued that Maddie's heart and well-being should come before rigid social codes. But the patriarch's authority was absolute, and the extended family's consensus left Maddie trapped between mourning a man she had loved and adhering to the rules that governed her every move. Logan, witnessing the confrontation, felt a surge of anger and helplessness. He wanted to shield Maddie from the cruelty of tradition, to take her far from the oppressive judgment of Willow Creek. Yet he also knew that confronting the family directly could provoke backlash, making her life even more unbearable. Maddie, fragile yet determined, resolved to navigate the impossible balance. She would honor her grief, protect her own dignity, and yet survive within the constraints her family imposed. Logan's presence at her side became her silent support, the only comfort in a world determined to judge her mourning and dictate her path. It was a harsh lesson in the weight of tradition and the lengths one had to go to maintain integrity in the face of societal expectation. The tension in the Harper mansion was suffocating. Maddie's grief hung in the air like a heavy fog, but so did the cold authority of Richard Harper Sr. and the disapproving gazes of the extended family. They had made it clear. Maddie must follow the strict rules of tradition, mourning Brandon in the prescribed manner, and preparing to live under the weight of expectations that left little room for personal choice. Lila, Maddie's mother, could not stand by silently. She had always been a woman of quiet strength and boundless compassion, and watching her daughter suffer while the family's rigid traditions threatened to crush her heart was unbearable. She rose from her chair in the drawing room, her voice calm but resolute. "This is not how a mother's child should be treated," Lila said, her eyes meeting those of Richard Harper Sr. "Maddie has lost the love of her life. She is grieving, and no tradition, no family expectation should demand she suffer more than she already has. Compassion must come before protocol." Richard Harper Sr. regarded her silently, his expression unreadable. Lila continued unwavering. "You speak of honor and reputation, but what of Maddie's heart? What of her dignity? If the family values her, truly values her, then you will allow her the time and space to heal, not force her into cold compliance." The room fell into tense silence. Little Harper shifted uncomfortably, but Lila's words had struck a chord. Even the relatives who were the most vocal in their insistence on tradition faltered, sensing the injustice of demanding grief to be measured and contained. For the first time in days, Maddie felt a flicker of hope. Her mother's courage reminded her that she was not entirely alone in the face of overwhelming pressure. Lila's intervention planted the seed of resistance, showing Maddie that love and family could sometimes mean standing up against the world for the sake of one's heart. It was Renee Lawson who offered a lifeline. Brandon's sister-in-law, a pragmatic and compassionate woman, recognized the danger Maddie faced, not from grief, but from the relentless imposition of Willow Creek's social expectations. She arrived at the Harper mansion one afternoon, gently insisting that Maddie come with her to Dallas. Her young son, curious and bright-eyed, clung to her hand as if sensing the tension surrounding Maddie.
Renee's presence was calming. She spoke with a mixture of firmness and empathy, explaining that the city would provide Maddie a safe space to mourn, to breathe, and to reclaim fragments of her life. "You don't have to live under rules that weren't meant for you," Renee said softly. "Come with us. Let the past rest for a while, and let yourself heal." After a long, tear-filled discussion, Maddie agreed. Packing only the essentials, she stepped into the car with Renee and her son, leaving behind the mansion, the family, and the expectations that had suffocated her. The journey to Dallas was quiet, filled with the hum of the engine and Maddie's silent reflections. Logan, who had quietly learned of her departure, remained in Willow Creek, his heart aching at the thought of her leaving, yet relieved that she would finally find space away from judgment. The moment Maddie arrived at Renee's home, she felt the first hint of safety in days. The city was unfamiliar, busy, and chaotic, but it lacked the oppressive weight of Willow Creek's expectations. Renee's warm, welcoming demeanor and her son's innocent curiosity offered Maddie a fragile sense of normalcy, a reminder that life could continue even after unimaginable loss. Life in Dallas was slow, tentative, and at times painfully reflective. Maddie spent her days enveloped in a mixture of grief and quiet discovery. Renee's home provided a sanctuary, a place where she could cry freely, speak honestly, and begin to untangle the knots of pain that had tightened around her heart. Renee's guidance was gentle but firm. She encouraged Maddie to engage with the world again, to meet new people, to explore new routines, and to reclaim a sense of agency in her life.
Healing doesn't mean forgetting, Renee reminded her. It means learning to live with the love you've lost while finding strength you never knew you had. Maddie started small, taking walks in the neighborhood with Renee's son, helping with daily chores, and slowly venturing into the community. Each day, the weight of grief lifted a little, replaced by cautious hope. She laughed quietly at the boy's antics, allowed herself to enjoy simple meals without sorrow hovering, and even began to consider what life might look like beyond her tragedy. Logan's presence, though distant, lingered in her thoughts. His unwavering devotion had always been a silent pillar in her life, and she realized that even though Brandon's death had shattered her world, there were still hearts willing to support and love her. Dallas became a place of fragile rebirth, where Maddie discovered that life, though altered, could still hold moments of joy, connection, and eventual hope. By the time weeks passed, Maddie's strength began to return. Renee's kindness had provided more than shelter. It had given her the space to reclaim herself. She was no longer merely Brandon's widow. She was a young woman capable of resilience, prepared to face the complexities of love, loyalty, and the difficult choices that lay ahead. Dallas had felt like a sanctuary, a fragile bubble where Maddie could rebuild herself after the sudden loss of Brandon. But that illusion shattered on one fateful night. She had been returning from a small gathering with Renee's family when her brother-in-law, whose presence had always been quietly unsettling, confronted her. At first, his words were polite, almost cordial, masking a simmering anger and resentment Maddie hadn't noticed before. But the tone quickly shifted, a calculated menace lacing each sentence. Maddie felt a chill run down her spine as he cornered her in a secluded hallway, his intentions dark and threatening. Panic surged through her. The room seemed to shrink around her, the walls closing in, as she struggled to maintain control. Fear gripped her body, making her hands tremble and her chest tighten. She realized in that terrifying moment that her safety was in jeopardy, that the sanctuary Dallas had provided was now violated. Renee, fortunately, had arrived moments later, her presence a shield against further harm. The confrontation ended abruptly, but the damage had been done. Maddie's sense of security, painstakingly rebuilt over weeks, collapsed in an instant. She knew she could no longer remain in Dallas. The city had become a place of fear rather than refuge. With a heavy heart, Maddie packed her essentials, leaving behind the home that had offered her temporary healing. She returned to Willow Creek, carrying the weight of trauma and the burden of memories she had hoped to leave behind. Each step toward home was filled with dread and uncertainty, but also a quiet determination. She would not let this event define her future. When Logan learned of Maddie's ordeal, anger, fear, and sorrow collided within him. The news struck like a thunderclap, igniting a fierce determination to protect the woman he had loved in silence for years. For months, he had been patiently watching from the sidelines, supporting her in subtle ways. But this event demanded action. He could no longer be passive. Maddie had survived immense loss, endured the constraints of family expectations, and now faced the aftermath of a terrifying assault. Logan's mind raced with possibilities: how to shield her, how to restore her faith in life, and most importantly, how to rekindle her belief in love. Visiting Willow Creek became a necessity. Logan arrived with a quiet urgency, prepared to stand as her protector, confidant, and unwavering support. His presence alone was a source of solace for Maddie, who had endured weeks of fear and uncertainty. Logan's dedication went beyond words. He listened without judgment, allowed her to share her fears, and provided stability in a world that had become unpredictable and dangerous. Slowly, he became the anchor she had lost, the steady hand she could trust, and the quiet reassurance that she was not alone. Logan's presence in Willow Creek, close to Maddie and offering her solace, did not go unnoticed. Richard Harper Sr., ever vigilant and unyielding, viewed Logan's growing role in Maddie's life as a challenge to the family's authority. One evening, the patriot confronted him in the town square, the quiet crowd sensing the tension between the two men. "Logan Hayes," Richard's voice was firm, cold, and commanding. "You are meddling where you do not belong. This family, this town, these traditions, they are not yours to challenge."
Logan stood his ground, meeting the patriarch's gaze without flinching. "I'm not here to challenge tradition," he replied steadily. "I'm here to support Maddie, to help her find her strength and her happiness after everything she's endured." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Happiness? You presume to know what is best for her? The Harper name, the family legacy? These are matters of greater consequence than your personal feelings." Logan's resolve hardened. "Her happiness is part of that legacy, sir, and right now she needs someone who will stand by her, not someone who will enforce rigid rules that harm her." The confrontation crackled with tension, the weight of tradition clashing against compassion and loyalty. The townspeople watched, sensing the brewing storm between authority and morality. Richard Harper Sr. wielded his influence like a weapon, but Logan's unwavering stance revealed a different kind of power, courage grounded in love, patience, and integrity. As the confrontation ended, the challenge was clear. Logan would not yield, and Richard Harper Sr. would not bend. The battle lines were drawn, setting the stage for a larger struggle between tradition and the human heart, a fight that would test loyalty, love, and the limits of authority. After Maddie returned to Willow Creek, she carried a weight heavier than grief alone. The trauma in Dallas had left her shaken, wary of the world, and uncertain whom to trust. Logan, ever observant and patient, recognized the fragility of her state. He knew that healing could not be rushed, and that loud gestures of heroism would mean little compared to consistent, quiet presence. He began visiting her daily, not with grand declarations, but with simple acts of care, bringing her favorite tea, accompanying her on walks through the familiar fields, listening to her without interrupting or offering unsolicited advice. Each small action built trust, showing Maddie that Logan was steadfast, that he was someone who would not falter, abandon, or judge her. Maddie, at first, responded cautiously. The shadows of fear and loss clung to her like a second skin. She flinched at sudden touches and hesitated before speaking her thoughts aloud. But Logan never pushed. He let silence speak when words failed and allowed her space to express herself at her own pace. Slowly, the tension in her body began to ease, her shoulders unburdening, even as her heart remained tender and wary. As days passed, their bond deepened. Maddie began to share fragments of her thoughts, memories of happier times, fears about the future, and faint glimpses of hope she dared not voice before. Logan, in turn, never forced intimacy, but offered understanding and reassurance, a constant reminder that she was no longer alone in the world. There were moments of laughter too, quiet and unexpected, that felt like small victories in the long process of rebuilding. Logan found joy in these moments, not for himself, but for the subtle reclaiming of Maddie's spirit. The boy who had once wandered Willow Creek alongside her had become a man capable of offering love without expectation, protection without control, and support without judgment. At the end of the chapter, Maddie began to realize that she could rely on Logan, that she could allow herself to lean on him emotionally. It was a fragile but vital trust, a bridge being rebuilt over the chasm of trauma and grief, and it marked the beginning of a renewed sense of hope for the future. One quiet evening, after Logan had left, Maddie found herself sitting with her mother, Lila, in the softly lit sitting room. The house was peaceful, the weight of family expectations momentarily absent, leaving space for honesty and vulnerability. Maddie hesitated at first, the words lodged in her throat, memories of loss and fear threatening to overwhelm her. Lila, sensing her daughter's inner turmoil, placed a gentle hand over hers. "You don't have to carry this alone, Maddie," she said softly. "Whatever has happened, whatever you feel, you can tell me." Taking a deep breath, Maddie began to speak. She recounted the days after Brandon's death, the crushing grief, the isolation, the suffocating pressure from her family to adhere to tradition. She shared the days in Dallas with Renee, the fragile sense of safety that was abruptly shattered, and the trauma she had endured at the hands of her brother-in-law. Each confession was a release, a way to unburden the soul that had been weighed down by so much pain. Lila listened without interruption, her eyes reflecting empathy, concern, and unwavering
unwavering love. She held Maddie close, offering comfort and validation that no lecture or family decree could provide. "I am so proud of you for surviving this, for finding the courage to keep going," Lila whispered. "You have endured more than anyone should have to, and yet here you are, still standing." Maddie's tears flowed freely, her body trembling with the release of long-suppressed anguish. Speaking aloud her fears and pain allowed her to reclaim a sense of control over her own story, a story she had feared would be defined solely by loss and suffering. Lila's support became a lifeline, a reminder that love and compassion could exist even amidst tragedy.
By the end of the conversation, Maddie felt a renewed sense of strength. Confiding in her mother did not erase the trauma, but it offered clarity, perspective, and a sense of being understood. For the first time in months, she believed that healing was possible, and that with Logan's steadfast presence and her mother's unwavering support, she could begin to rebuild not only her life, but also her capacity to love and trust again. The Harper estate had grown cold with tension. Maddie's father, Richard Harper Jr., and Brandon's brother-in-law, whose lingering resentment from past events festered silently, watched with sharp eyes as Maddie grew closer to Logan. Every smile, every gentle laugh shared between the two seemed to ignite a quiet fury in the men, a jealousy masked by the pretense of concern for propriety. One evening, in the dimly lit drawing room, little Harper spoke with a measured but dangerous tone. "Maddie, you have obligations that cannot be ignored. Your loyalty to this family, to our name, must take precedence over fleeting attachments. You cannot allow yourself to be swayed by outsiders." Maddie's hands trembled slightly, the weight of expectation pressing down like iron bands around her chest. She looked toward her mother, Lila, whose expression was resolute yet tinged with worry. Lila's quiet support reminded her that she was not entirely alone, but the threat was real, and the men made no effort to hide it. The brother-in-law leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. "You are free in name only, Maddie. If you defy us, there will be consequences. You will return under our supervision, and anyone interfering will answer for it." Logan, present yet silent, felt his jaw tighten. Every word was a blade aimed at Maddie's independence, every threat a reminder of the power the Harper family wielded over her life. Yet he also recognized the courage stirring within her. Though fear was evident in her eyes, there was also a determination to not be controlled, to not allow past tragedies or family expectations to dictate her future. The tension was suffocating, a storm gathering on the horizon. Maddie's mind raced, torn between the desire to honor her family and the need to protect her own heart. Logan, watching quietly, silently vowed that no threat, no authority, and no tradition would force her to surrender her autonomy. The sun beat down mercilessly on Willow Creek's town square, a crowd having gathered in anticipation of the Harper family's latest assertion of authority. At the center stood Richard Harper Sr., commanding and imposing, flanked by little Harper and Brandon's brother-in-law. Across from them, Logan and Maddie faced the scrutiny of the entire town, the weight of expectation pressing down from every angle. Logan Hayes, Richard's voice echoed across the square, carrying authority that silenced murmurs among the townspeople. "You presume to interfere in matters beyond your understanding. This young woman must adhere to our traditions, and you have no place in her decisions." Logan squared his shoulders, meeting the patriarch's gaze without fear. "She is no one's possession," he said firmly. "Maddie has endured enough.
enough. She deserves the right to choose her own path without fear, without threats, without being bound by outdated rules that harm her. The tension was suffocating, a storm gathering on the horizon. Maddie's mind raced, torn between the desire to honor her family and the need to protect her own heart. Logan, watching quietly, silently vowed that no threat, no authority, and no tradition would force her to surrender her autonomy. The sun beat down mercilessly on Willow Creek's town square, a crowd having gathered in anticipation of the Harper family's latest assertion of authority. At the center stood Richard Harper Sr., commanding and imposing, flanked by Little Harper and Brandon's brother-in-law. Across from them, Logan and Maddie faced the scrutiny of the entire town, the weight of expectation pressing down from every angle. Logan Hayes, Richard's voice echoed across the square, carrying authority that silenced murmurs among the townspeople. "You presume to interfere in matters beyond your understanding. This young woman must adhere to our traditions, and you have no place in her decisions." Logan squared his shoulders, meeting the patriarch's gaze without fear. "She is no one's possession," he said firmly. "Maddie has endured enough. She deserves the right to choose her own path, without fear, without threats, without being bound by outdated rules that harm her." The tension was suffocating, a storm gathering on the horizon. Maddie's mind raced, torn between the desire to honor her family and the need to protect her own heart. Logan, watching quietly, silently vowed that no threat, no authority, and no tradition would force her to surrender her autonomy. The sun beat down mercilessly on Willow Creek's town square, a crowd having gathered in anticipation of the Harper family's latest assertion of authority. At the center stood Richard Harper Sr., commanding and imposing, flanked by Little Harper and Brandon's brother-in-law. Across from them, Logan and Maddie faced the scrutiny of the entire town, the weight of expectation pressing down from every angle. Logan Hayes, Richard's voice echoed across the square, carrying authority that silenced murmurs among the townspeople. "You presume to interfere in matters beyond your understanding. This young woman must adhere to our traditions, and you have no place in her decisions." Logan squared his shoulders, meeting the patriarch's gaze without fear. "She is no one's possession," he said firmly. "Maddie has endured enough. She deserves the right to choose her own path, without fear, without threats, without being bound by outdated rules that harm her." The tension was suffocating, a storm gathering on the horizon. Maddie's mind raced, torn between the desire to honor her family and the need to protect her own heart. Logan, watching quietly, silently vowed that no threat, no authority, and no tradition would force her to surrender her autonomy. The sun beat down mercilessly on Willow Creek's town square, a crowd having gathered in anticipation of the Harper family's latest assertion of authority. At the center stood Richard Harper Sr., commanding and imposing, flanked by Little Harper and Brandon's brother-in-law. Across from them, Logan and Maddie faced the scrutiny of the entire town, the weight of expectation pressing down from every angle. Logan Hayes, Richard's voice echoed across the square, carrying authority that silenced murmurs among the townspeople. "You presume to interfere in matters beyond your understanding. This young woman must adhere to our traditions, and you have no place in her decisions." Logan squared his shoulders, meeting the patriarch's gaze without fear. "She is no one's possession," he said firmly. "Maddie has endured enough. She deserves the right to choose her own path, without fear, without threats, without being bound by outdated rules that harm her." The tension was suffocating, a storm gathering on the horizon. Maddie's mind raced, torn between the desire to honor her family and the need to protect her own heart. Logan, watching quietly, silently vowed that no threat, no authority, and no tradition would force her to surrender her autonomy. The sun beat down mercilessly on Willow Creek's town square, a crowd having gathered in anticipation of the Harper family's latest assertion of authority. At the center stood Richard Harper Sr., commanding and imposing, flanked by Little Harper and Brandon's brother-in-law. Across from them, Logan and Maddie faced the scrutiny of the entire town, the weight of expectation pressing down from every angle. Logan Hayes, Richard's voice echoed across the square, carrying authority that silenced murmurs among the townspeople. "You presume to interfere in matters beyond your understanding. This young woman must adhere to our traditions, and you have no place in her decisions." Logan squared his shoulders, meeting the patriarch's gaze without fear. "She is no one's possession," he said firmly. "Maddie has endured enough. She deserves the right to choose her own path, without fear, without threats, without being bound by outdated rules that harm her." The tension was suffocating, a storm gathering on the horizon. Maddie's mind raced, torn between the desire to honor her family and the need to protect her own heart. Logan, watching quietly, silently vowed that no threat, no authority, and no tradition would force her to surrender her autonomy. The sun beat down mercilessly on Willow Creek's town square, a crowd having gathered in anticipation of the Harper family's latest assertion of authority. At the center stood Richard Harper Sr., commanding and imposing, flanked by Little Harper and Brandon's brother-in-law. Across from them, Logan and Maddie faced the scrutiny of the entire town, the weight of expectation pressing down from every angle. Logan Hayes, Richard's voice echoed across the square, carrying authority that silenced murmurs among the townspeople. "You presume to interfere in matters beyond your understanding."
For the Harper family, it was a moment of reckoning. Richard Harper Sr. studied the young couple, seeing not defiance, but integrity, patience, and devotion, the very qualities he had valued in his life. Slowly, he nodded, the stern lines of his face softening slightly. Little Harper and even the brother-in-law exchanged reluctant glances, realizing that Maddie's happiness and Logan's steadfastness could not be ignored. The room's atmosphere shifted. Where there had been tension, there was now acknowledgement. Where there had been threats, there was grudging respect. The family began to relent, understanding that true courage lay not in enforcing blind tradition, but in allowing love and choice to guide one's actions. Outside, the townspeople who had heard of the confrontation whispered their approval. Logan and Maddie's love had become a symbol, a testament to endurance, loyalty, and the triumph of the heart over rigid expectations. In the days that followed, Willow Creek seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. The storm of conflict had passed, leaving behind a quiet peace and a sense of justice fulfilled. Maddie and Logan, no longer bound by fear or unspoken longing, were free to step into their shared future with open hearts. Their reunion was both tender and resolute. Each glance, each touch carried the weight of years apart, the pain of loss, and the lessons learned through adversity. They had been tested by tragedy, tradition, and trauma, but those very trials had forged a love stronger than either could have imagined. Maddie's family, though initially cautious, gradually embraced the change. Lila's gentle guidance, combined with the visible devotion of Logan, had softened even the hardest hearts. The Harper estate, once a place of strict rules and expectations, became a home where compassion and respect balanced tradition with personal choice. In the town square, now a place of celebration rather than confrontation, Willow Creek's residents witnessed the beauty of the young couple's triumph. Their story became more than a tale of love. It was a lesson, a reminder that courage, patience, and unwavering devotion could overcome the weight of societal expectation. Logan and Maddie, walking hand in hand beneath the golden light of the setting sun, felt the future open before them. Every challenge they had faced, the distance, the loss, the trauma, the resistance, had strengthened their bond. They were no longer the children who had wandered the fields of Willow Creek together. They were partners, equals, and survivors, ready to embrace life as one.
As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues over the town, Maddie leaned against Logan, whispering, "We made it." He smiled, kissing her forehead gently. "Together, always," he replied. And in that moment, Willow Creek witnessed a triumph of love over tradition, a story of resilience that would be remembered for generations, a love that endured, that healed, and that prevailed.